Chapter 77 The Liberation of Karkati. Argument. Description of the Dark Night. The Rakshasis meeting a Raja and his minister. Her trial and argumentation with them. Vasishtha resumed. It was a deep dark night, black as ink and as thick as tangible pitch, hiding the habitation of the Kiratas under its negrescent umbrage. The sky was moonless and overcast by a veil of sable clouds. The woodlands were obscured by tamala trees, and the thick masses of black clouds were flying about in the air. The thick firs and bushes besetting the hilly villages obstructed the passages by the impervious darkness, and the flitting light of fireflies gave the homesteads an appearance of the bridal night. The thick darkness spreading over the compounds of houses shut out the passage of the light of lamps, which made their way off from the chinks of the dwelling in which they were burning. Karkati beheld a band of Pishachis dancing about her as her companions, but she became motionless as a block of wood on seeing the Jidi Vitalas moving about with human skeletons in their hands. And so let me make a comment quickly there that Pishachis is feminine for a kind of demon or kind of hobgoblin. And Vitala is a vampire, and that's exactly what it means. And so this text is well over 12,000 years old, and they're talking about vampires, and they talk about them throughout the book. So this is just one instance where when even she became, this giant demon became fearful for no reason, because she's giant, from a small band of vampires who were roving about with human skeletons and were jitty and so a little crazy and a little whimsical. But let's continue. She saw the sleepiness antelopes by her, and the ground matted over by the thick snowfalls, while the drizzling drops of dew and frost were gently shaken by the breeze on the leaves of trees. She heard the frogs croaking in the bogs and the night ravens cawing from the hollows of trees, while the mingled noise of jocund men and women were issuing from the inside of houses. She saw the igneous fatness burning in the swamps with the luster of portentous meteors, and found the banks and barns thick with thorns and thistles, growing by their sides and washed by the waters gliding below them. She looked above and saw the groups of stars shining in the firmament, and beheld the forest about her shaking their fruit and flowers by the breeze. She heard the alternate and incessant cries of owls and crows in the hollows of trees, and listened also the shouts of robbers in the skirts and the wailings of the villagers at a distance. The foresters were silent in their native woods, and the citizens were fast asleep in the cities. The winds were howling in the forests, and the birds were at rest in their sylvan nests. Furious lions lay in their dens, and the deer were lying in their caves also. The sky was full of hoar frost, and the woodlands were all still and quiet. The lightning, flashing from amidst the dark inky clouds, resembled the reflections of ray from the bosom of a crystal mountain. The clouds were as thick as solid clay, and the darkness was as stiff as it required to be severed by a sword. Blown by the storm, the dark cloud fled like the sable Aujana mountain in the air, and it deluged a flood of pitchy rain like the waterfall from the bosom of a mountain. The night, as dark as the pit of a coal mine, and as jet black as the wing of the black bee, Brahmara, and the whole landscape lulled to sleep, appeared as the world lying submerged under ignorance. In this dreadful dead of night, she saw in the district inhabited by Kiratas a prince and his minister wandering together in the forest. The prince was named Vikrama and was brave and valorous as his name and conduct implied him to be. He came out undaunted from within the city after the citizens had fallen asleep. Kakati beheld them roving in the forest with the weapons of their valor and fortitude, and searching the Vitaras infesting the neighborhood. Seeing them, she was glad to think that she had at last got her proper food, but wanted to know beforehand whether they were ignorant folks or had any knowledge of their souls, or whether their weariness under the burden of their bodies had exposed them to the dangers of the darksome night. The lives of the unlearned, said she, are verily for their prediction in this world and the next. It is therefore meet to put an end to these, rather than leave them to live to their peril in both worlds. The earlier the ignorant die, the sooner do they rid themselves of their miseries and responsibilities. The life of the untutored is death. Without spiritual knowledge, and physical death is preferable, inasmuch as it saves the dying soul from its accumulation of sin. Living in the sinful world is sin, unless it is averted by spiritual knowledge. It is the primeval law ordained by our prime father, the lotus-born Brahma, that ignorant souls and those without knowledge of their selves should soon become the food of the hyenas, of voracious and envious animals which devour the body and not the soul. Therefore, there is no harm in my feeding upon these two persons who have offered themselves for my food, because it is silliness to let slip a ready prize or preferred gift from the hand. But lest they should prove to be men of parts and good and great souls, I cannot, in that case, fail dispose of my own nature to put an end to their valuable lives. And I need to interject here because this is explaining why demons are allowed to attack those that are ignorant. Ignorant of whom? Ignorant, spiritually ignorant of the Creator, and those who are wicked or half wicked or lukewarm, whatever you want to call it. So, um, on the reverse, on the flip side, those who are wearing the armor of God, those who have faith, those who have no fear, walk with God, those cannot be devoured by the demons. Just like the Bible says, and I'm paraphrasing here, the devil is like a lion looking to devour anybody. It's the same exact thing that Vasishta is transmitting here, as we see in the Bible. Now you know. Now you know what happened in 2020, 2021, and all those people were devoured, and the demons were allowed to devour them because it's a spiritual law. If you're wicked, if you're half wicked, you're fair game. If you're ignorant, you're living in sin. You're living in ignorance. Your life is sin because you're not devoting every single minute of every single day to the Creator. And even demons know that. Okay? So the answer of why is there evil? Why does God allow demons to be created? Why does God create demons? Etc. Etc. It's not just for you to become better and overcome. That's part of it. But it's also a self-cleaning system. It's a system that takes the trash out. It's the vultures of the ecosystem, of the spiritual ecosystem and the physical ecosystem. It's the leeches. It's the fire. It's the jackals. Otherwise, there would be carcasses all around if there were no vultures. All right. So it's a trash that takes itself out. And all those wicked and evil people that think they're destroying other people, they're also destroying themselves. So we're headed for a crescendo, I agree, in Kali Yuga, where everything is just completely destroying itself, consuming itself like a fire, self-consuming fire, up to the culmination, and then from the ashes, a new world. But I'm not referring to the demon world they want, right? That's never going to happen. It's their dream, and they fell time and again. But so, what the scripture's telling us here is if you walk with God, if you're spiritually sound, and you're like every minute of every day, in the mode of goodness, thinking of God, doing godly things, then the demons cannot touch you. And I don't know of one person, because people give me this example, oh, you can be good and then bad things happen to you. Like, I know good and bad things happen to everybody, but I've never seen, in my personal life, I've never known anybody that's really, really, really good and godly and something terrible happened to them. I've never seen that happen once. Okay, on the contrary, I've seen miracles happen to them. But anyway, let's see what else Vasishta has to tell us. Therefore, there is no harm in my feeding upon these two persons who have offered themselves for my food, because it is silliness to let slip a ready prize or preferred gift from the hand. But lest they should prove to be men of parts and good and great souls, I cannot, in that case, fail dispose of my own nature, to put an end to their valuable lives. I must therefore make a trial of them and see if they are possessed of such parts that I may decline from making my mess of them, because I feel averse to molest the intelligent. For those that expect to have true glory and real happiness with the length of their lives on earth must always honor the learned with honorariums adequate to their parts and desires. I should rather suffer my body to perish with hunger than destroy the intelligent for its supportance, because the soul derives more satisfaction from the counsels of the wise than bare life without knowledge can possibly afford. The learned are to be supported even at the expense of one's own life, because the society of the wise affords a psychic to the soul, was through death should deprive us of our bodies, for it ameliorates even the pangs of death. Seeing me, a man-eater Rakshasi, or Nephilim, so favorably disposed to the preservation of the wise, what reasonable man is there that must not make a breastplate of the wise for himself? Of all embodied beings that move about on the surface of the earth, it is the man of profound understanding only who sheds his being influence like cooling moonbeams all around him. The light of knowledge is compared with the gentle moonbeams. To be despised by the wise is death, and to be honored by the learned is true life, because it is the society of the sapient only that makes the life bring forth its fruits of heavenly bliss and final beatitude. I will now put a few questions for their examination, and know whether they are men of parts or gilded on the surface with sapient looks like copper by a chemical process. Upon examination and ascertainment of the qualifications, they prove to be wiser than the examiner. In that case, one should avail of their instruction, or otherwise there is no harm to make an end of them as they best deserve. I'm going to skip chapter 78 and go to the middle of that chapter. I may read it to you at a later point, but it's just more description of the demon and their encounter. And I'm going to go to the meat and bones, all pun intended. My intention is already known to them, as is theirs also to me. They cannot be destroyed by me when they are indestructible themselves by their moral excellence. So the Shastra, the virtuous, may endure or live forever. Chiranjivati Dharmatma. I understand them to be acquainted with spiritual knowledge also, without which there cannot be a good understanding, because it is the knowledge of the indestructibility of the spirit that takes away the fear of death, which is wanting in these men. I shall therefore ask them about something wherein I am doubtful, because they that fail to ask the wise what they know not must remain dunces throughout their lives. Having thought so, she opened her mouth to make her queries by suppressing her roaring voice and her loud laughter for a while. So there I will end for now. I highly recommend you read this book. Every human on earth should read this book. It's like dripping with wisdom. And so at the end, if you notice, what she's saying is, again, the wise, the godly, the spiritual cannot be touched by the demons. And then it goes on for several chapters where she asks them several riddles about, the creator and creation, and they answer. So I'm not going to spoil the ending for you, but again, many blessings to you, and have a blessed life.